Linguistics 101, Understanding the Science of Language. Linguistics is the science of language, a social science discipline. In this crash course, we'll be delving deeper on how language is being studied scientifically in the context of an individual's milieu. Introduction. The moment infants are born, he begins to babble, smile, laugh, and cry to express himself and communicate his needs. Intuitively, the mother knows her baby might be hungry. His diaper may be soaking wet, or he's not feeling well once he begins to cry. Conversely, once the infant begins to babble, smile, and laugh, most likely the baby is beginning to use the rudiments of the language of his environment and is trying to express himself more directly. Babbling may be a sign of affection, to acknowledge that the baby is happy, that someone is taking good care of him, like an adopted puppy turned over to a new owner. Like a puppy, a baby starts to familiarize himself to his environment. He picks up the significant words he hears from those close to him. As he grows older, without you even noticing it, the baby soon develops his first words through mimicry. As the child grows up and when he learns how to read and write, his vocabulary builds up. His brain is noticeably growing bigger, and the once self-centered child begins to take interest in the world around him. The child eventually matures into adulthood, along with a much more developed brain, and his social world expands. His environment and his experiences mold him into the person he is today. The development of a child's language is dependent on nature and nurture. Nature and nurture are inseparable because a child is not born out of nowhere and is not isolated from the world. He cannot learn a language without being exposed to human beings in the same way that it will be difficult for him to learn a language if he had certain physical and mental illnesses and disorders that impede speech. Definition of language. Language is a way of labeling our thoughts. We need to assign different labels to our thoughts and feelings, objects, and identify people to distinguish them from one another and each other. According to the Oxford Dictionary, language is the method of human communication, either spoken or written, consisting of the use of words in a structured and conventional way. Being structured and conventional means there is a system of communication used by a particular country or community. The key words here are spoken, written, system, communication, country, or community. In short, language is a structured and conventional system of communication, either spoken or written by a country or community. Aside from spoken and written language, there is also a nonverbal method of expression or communication, which is body language. The nonverbal expressions and communication are expressed in gestures. Furthermore, when we search for a word in the dictionary, we encounter how the word is classified, whether informal, formal, slang, or jargon. Informal is everyday language, while formal is a diplomatic way of communication. Slang, on the other hand, can be defined as offensive language, while jargon are terms used by a specialized profession in contrast to layman. We could also say there is mutual understanding when we speak the same language. Speaking the same language means we understand one another as a result of shared opinions or values. This is when communication becomes effective. In the advent of internet technology, computers also use a structured and conventional system of language. The Oxford Dictionary defines computing as a system of symbols and rules for writing programs or algorithms such as Fortran and BASIC. In lieu of words, computers use symbols and rules for writing programs. When a community shares the same kind of language, there is mutual understanding. We are able to express our wants and needs. Communication then becomes effective. Prevailing theory on the origin of languages. Certain regions and continents share similarities in language. The closer a country is to another, the more they share similarities. Migration and immigration makes it possible for one country to assimilate another foreign language. Moreover, the similarities in language are also influenced by barter trade when there is an exchange of communication for every trade. Similarities in language can also be influenced by colonization, such as in the case of Philippine language, Tagalog, where many of its words derive from Spanish as a result of Spaniard occupation in history. It goes without saying that similarities in languages are influenced by proximity, being trade partners, and colonization. Polyglot versus linguist. What's the difference? Polyglot and linguist may mean the same thing and might be mistaken to be one and the same profession, but they're not. Here's the distinction. A polyglot speaks several different foreign languages. She is proficient in several, meaning two or more, or many languages other than his native tongue. A linguist studies the components and nuances of a language, its morpheme, the individual character, as in the case of Chinese or Japanese, or letter of a word, the language alphabet, its grammar, syntax or sentence structure, pronunciation, etymology, the origin of the word, and semantics, otherwise or meaning. To be proficient in a particular language, a polyglot depends on a linguist for the development of his or her syllabus. A linguist ideally facilitates learning a foreign language. Linguists also create standard dictionaries for every language. Both study language exclusively. Nonverbal and body language are not included. Polyglot versus linguist. What's the difference? Continuation. In summary, let's provide a more concrete definition of a polyglot and a linguist. A polyglot practices speaking and writing several two or more languages. In contrast, the linguist is like a detective who studies the components of a language. He or she may not speak several languages and may focus on one language alone. A polyglot learns a foreign language based on the syllabus provided by a linguist. This is where they work hand in hand. Language families or groups. Based on the theory that all languages originate from one source which branch out like a tree, how are languages grouped into families? When a group of languages share a common origin language or a proto-language, then they can be considered a language family. This is evident by their similarities. Take note that some languages do not come from a proto-language. These are known as language isolates and include languages such as Basque, spoken by some in southwestern Europe, and Piraha, spoken by the Piraha people of the Brazilian Amazon. Components of a language. The components of a language are broken down as follows. Morpheme, the individual character or letter of a word. Alphabet, grammar, syntax or sentence structure, pronunciation, including stressed syllables, etymology, origin of the word, semantics or meaning. The linguist's job is to provide the community with the training and materials that can enhance their communication skills based on the study of the language's component. Teaching methods: visual, auditory, kinesthetic, or tactile learning styles, abbreviated as VAK. What teaching methodologies can a linguist use to teach language? We can maximize the visual, auditory, kinesthetic, or tactile learning styles. The VAK learning style uses the senses of vision, hearing, and touch. Provide a glossary throughout the course because each profession almost always has its own jargon. The syllabus should start with the foundations, then moving to intermediate and advanced levels. Through citing concrete instead of abstract examples. Concrete analogies, comparing and contrasting two seemingly the same situations, events, or items. Demonstration, hands-on, with instruction. Asking students to do a reflection paper or visual presentation with an outline as their guide. Administering assessments, evaluations to gauge problem areas of students. through reviewing, questionnaire, and repetition, especially for the learning disabled who's not learning at a normal pace. The future of linguistics, like any other discipline which is for the betterment of mankind, the environment, and the universe, linguistics strives to improve communication, with the main goal of making communication more effective in mind. Linguists can come up with a prescriptive grammar and vocabulary instruction that the students and the community could use. A linguist's job, in other words, is to get involved in a community to better understand, communicate, and address their concerns and in a diplomatic and sensible way. All nations depend on language for their communication. Language is used in almost all aspects of our life, from learning how to read and write to acquiring vocational skills, earning a diploma, and to be more productive in our careers. The goal of linguistics is to improve and facilitate communication by means of language.